Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badharayanam Sutrabhashya Kritav Vande Bhagavantav Punah Punah. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Hari Om. So we have concluded our discussion on Atma topic. And that was the second of the 7 topics that were raised in verse 49. A beautiful definition of Atma was given. Prakriti Vikriti Binna Shuddha Bodha Svabhavaha Sadasadidam Ashesham Bhasayan Nirvisheshaha Vilasati Paramatma Jagradadishu Avastasu Ahamahamiti Sakshat Sakshi Rupena Buddhe. So it was said that Atma is something other than cause and effect. It is of the nature of pure consciousness. It illumines matter, both gross and subtle, it illumines. It is free of all qualities, properties, attributes, free of all of them. And it is self-effulgent, self-evident. And it is self-evident in all states of experience. How? As I, as a witness. Immediately, without the need for any medium. It He's the illuminator of buddhi, the intellect. So these were the various indicators. Okay. We cannot totally define. We just have to indicate. So these were the various indicators that were given. And finally, niyamita manasamum tvam swamatmanamatmani ayamahamiti sakshat vidhi buddhi prasad maranataranga apara samsara sindum pratarabhava kritarto brahma rupena samstah. With a disciplined mind, directly know this Atma. How? As your own self. How can you do that? With the grace of the intellect. And thereby cross over the shoreless ocean of samsara and be totally fulfilled as Brahman. So everything was beautifully pointed out. What is the nature? How to recognize it? How to be established in it? And what is the result? Everything beautifully said. Thus, jnana sadhanam, atma jnanam, atma jnana phalam. All these were condensed just one verse. So we have seen up to that in the last class. So we continue with verse 137. Atranatmani ahamiti mate bandayeshosya pumsah prapto jnana janana marana klesha sampata hetuh yenaivayam vapuridam satyamityatma buddhya pushyati vokshatyavati vishayaihi tanutubihi koshakritvat atranatmani ahamiti matihi bandayeshosya pumsah prapto jnana janana marana klesha sampata hetuh येनैवायं वपुरिदमसत् सत्यमित्यात्मबुद्ध्या पुष्यत्वक्षत्यवति विषयैः तन्तुभिः कोशकृत्वत्. So as I said, with verse 136, the topic of Atma is concluded. And this topic started in verse 124. So verse 72 to 123 covered the Anatma topic, and verse 124 to 136, the Atma topic. So he has covered Anatma and Atma of 7 topics. 2 of them have been completed. Now we enter, and Shankaracharya is going to discuss the 3rd topic, and that is Ko Nama Bandha. What is bondage? In fact, this was the first question. The student, when he started asking the question, this is the first question he asked, because he had described earlier how he is suffering because of this bondage. So that was the first thing on his mind, and so that is what he asked. Ko nama bandha? What is this bondage? So he takes that verse now, that question now. Only 2 slokas, 137 and 138, will define bandha, bondage. Very simply, very short definition. He defines bandha, bondage, as taking the body as myself. Deha abhimana. Simple language, mistaking this body as Atma, the self. Remember, when we say body, it is just not the physical body, but all the three bodies you should take. Of course, our identification with this physical body is the greatest because it is so tangible. You can see that. But it is the total body, mind, intellect, calm. All three bodies you should stay. And we think that is the Atma, meaning we think that is who I am. Mistaking the Anatma, the not self, as Atma, that is bondage. Very simple definition. This erroneous perception, wrong notion, and this is technically called in Vedanta as adhyasa. The one word English translation for adhyasa is superimposition. Okay, but we need to be careful. It's a little bit more than that. So superimposition is a more generic term. So when we say adhyasa, it's a more technical term. So you should understand we don't have really a precise English word. So we need to be careful. We use superimposition only. And error is called adhyasa. And when we say error, we say a mistake, things like that. So again, error is not a good translation for adhyasa. All these need to be put together and you need to understand adhyasa as adhyasa. Okay. And then other words that are used in Sanskrit for this, bhranti, viparyaya, delusion, confusion, all this. All of them have their own connotation, a little insight it gives. So all of them put together, you should get an understanding of what it is. As one single word doesn't cut it. Many words are there. Most popular, probably the best fit for this is adhyasa. In fact, Bhashyakara, Shankaracharya, in his introduction of Brahma Sutra, starts with adhyasa bhashya. The Brahma Sutra commentary starts with adhyasa bhashya. He establishes that all our problems are due to this fundamental self-error. When I say self-error, error with regard to the self. The mistake that we make with regard to ourselves. Who I am. Who am I? I don't know properly. That's the problem. So that is the error. And that causes bondage. So we call that itself as bondage. As long as we do not correct that error, that mistake, it goes everywhere. That mistake, that error that we make, that gets into everything. This is such a fundamental self-error. It's going to affect everything. Because the self-I, I'm involved in everything. I'm involved in all my activities. If I don't have the right handle on who that I is, so anything and everything I do will be fraught with some problem or the other. I am involved in all my activities. Can you ever say you are not involved? I am involved. I am the common factor. The other things, other people, they may not be there all the time, but you are involved in your activities 100% of the time. And when I make a mistake about who I am, everything I do will be messed up only. So any error that I make in this regard will be carried over to my family life, my work situation, my social life, even religious life. It'll create a problem. For many people, even religion is a fear. Like that, mistaking who you are. And therefore, Vedanta says that kind of a self-error, the mistake that you make with regard to yourself, which we call adhyasa, that itself it calls as bondage. And how does that error come about? What causes this error? Ignorance. Ignorance caused error is bandha. This is the definition of bondage. Ignorance caused error. And that bondage manifests in the form of raga dvesha. Raga dvesha. That's why in Vedanta, we give two examples. Talking about raga dvesha, two examples are usually given. Both involve this kind of a dhyasa, superimposition, erroneous superimposition. One is the rope snake example. Taking the rope and superimposing a snake on that rope, that is one. And the other is called, the other common example is shell silver example. Seashell is there and it is shining and you take it to be silver. The rope ignorance that causes the error of a snake perception. This error is rope snake error. The other example is when on the beach, the shell is not clearly seen as a shell, and in the sunlight, the shell is shining, and you mistake it for a silver coin. Again, here, ignorance is there, superimposition is there. What do we give? Two examples. One is an example to show error gives rise to dvesha, dislike. When you're seeing a snake, you don't like the snake, you don't want to be anywhere near it, you're scared of the snake, so it causes fear and all that. Negative reactions are there. It is called nivrutti, withdrawing from the object. You want to run away from that. On the other hand, in the shell silver error, I see silver. And these days, silver has become so expensive. Went up 150%, 160% last year. Those of us, with a lot of gray hair, we remember the gold price. That is the price of silver these days. How much per ounce we paid for sovereign? We used to, I don't know, I think they still use that. Sovereign of gold, that is how much it costs now for silver. So silver has become that much more valuable, and you see some silver on the beach. Oh, today my lucky day. So you run towards it. Pravrutti, raga. So errors can cause both pravrutti and nivrutti. When I commit an error about myself, my identity, my life will be a series of pravritti and nivritti. And that is samsara. That is bondage. Therefore, Bhashyakara says, atra anatmani aham iti matihi ajnanat praptah. Ajnanat praptah, it comes about due to ignorance. Because of ignorance, what happens? Matihi. You have a notion. What is that notion? It is erroneous notion. And what is that erroneous notion? Anatmani aham iti. The notion that I, the self, am the body. That body is anatma, the not self. And in that, I have the notion that it is me, atma. The I notion in to ajnanat, because of ignorance. Praptah, this is gotten because of ignorance. And this I notion in the body is there for everyone. Then what is the fact? If the I notion in the body, the anatma, is an erroneous notion, what is the correct notion? I notion must be in the Atma. I am Atma should be what your understanding should be. So, Dehatma Buddhi, that I am the body, otherwise called Adhyasa, superimposing the Atma and the Anatma. Deha Abhimana, identification with the body as I myself. And that exists for everyone because of ignorance. Not knowing that I am Atma, I take myself, I take that Anatma as Atma. So he says, Yeshaha Bandhaha Asya Pumsaha. This notion of bondage for this human being, this is how it comes about. Therefore, Eshaha, this notion, Anatmani Ahamiti Matihi. This is the typical samsara bondage. This is the bondage for a human being. What does it do? What does the bondage do? Janana, Marana, Klesha, Sampata, Hetu. This error, this mistake, the wrong notion is Hetu, is the cause. What does it create? Klesha Sampata, the arrival, occurrence of varieties of pains characterized by Janana and Marana, the birth and death. Why do we say that the error causes birth and death, Janana Marana? It's very subtle point. I, the Atma, I as Atma am Janana Marana Rahitaha. Atma does not have any birth or death. Atma is immortal, eternal, doesn't have any birth. Na jayate mriyate va kadachite. No death, no birth. That is Atma. But this body, this body is subject to Janana Marana. Body is born. Every one of us know, all of us have a date of birth. This body, all of our bodies, date of birth. And we are just waiting to find out what is the date of death, that we will not know, but others will know. Right? Inevitable. On the contrary, Atma is ever eternal, immortal. Body is mortal, Atma is immortal. We cannot make Atma mortal, nor can immortalize the body. Then how do you say that error is the cause of mortality? The idea is, when I make the mistake of identifying with the body, I naturally claim myself to be mortal. That's all. Identified with the body, Dehe Pushte, Aham Pushtaha. Body is healthy, I am healthy. Dehe Nashte, Aham Nashtaha. When the body is sick, I am sick. Dehe vruddhe, aham vruddha. The body is old, I am old. Whatever be the condition of the body, I take them to be my condition. So the error does not make me mortal, but makes me claim mortality of the body to be my mortality. The error is not the cause of mortality, that I am mortal. Why does such a notion come? Because I take the body to be myself. Therefore, body's mortality becomes my mortality. The jnani recognizes the fact the body is mortal, he knows. And so he does not commit the error that he is the body. He doesn't take the body to be himself. So he does not worry about his mortality. He is identified with the immortal Atma. And therefore he is able to claim that he is immortal. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Janana Marana Klesha Sampata Hetuhu. This error is the cause of all our problems. Then, Yena Eva, because of that only, I am this, referring to this man who has made this mistake, idam asat vapuhu satyamiti buddhya. He commits two mistakes. The first mistake is he takes this mithya shariram as satyam, the unreal body. He takes it to be real. He mistakes the asat vapuhu. Asat Asadvapuhu Mithya Shariram, the unreal body as Satya Shariram. Like taking the Mithya, the illusory snake, as a real snake. Similarly, here also, Asadvapuhu Satyamiti Buddhya. Takes the unreal body as real. This is the first mistake. The next mistake is Atma Buddhya. He takes the objective body as a subject. Taking the unreal as real is the first mistake, and taking Anatma as Atma. Taking the unreal as real is the first mistake. And taking the Anatma as Atma, the not self as the self, taking the object as the subject is the second mistake. The mistake of identification. It's like watching a movie or a play. Then I begin to identify with the hero. Then gradually I get tanmayata, total identification. So in Sanskrit, this is called dharmi adhyasa. Once the total identification takes place, that movie hero's problem will become my problem. His problem becomes my problem. It is called dharma adhyasa. Substance superimposition leads to attribute superimposition. This is called tadatmya adhyasa. Samsarga adhyasa. These are various names. Technical terms. You don't have to worry too much about those. Total identification. Tadatmyam, that itself you have become. So substance identification and attribute identification, dharmi adhyasa and dharma adhyasa. With regard to the body also, there is identification called Atma Buddhi. So, yena eva, because of that error alone, I am this, referring to what? This ignorant person. He takes idam asat vapuhu, this unreal body, satyamiti. He takes it as real. And Atma Buddhya here all means notion, and he has the notion that the body itself is myself. Once I take the body as myself, then I have to take care of the body very carefully. One basic urge of every human being is I want to be immortal. This is a natural urge because in fact, whenever there is a natural urge, we can conclude that is our nature. I am immortal by nature. I want to have this immortality, but now I have mistaken this body as myself. But I want to be immortal. Having taken the body as me, and when you see these bodies, perishing, that gives you fear of death. But I want to be never. May I be there forever. We have seen this elsewhere. Therefore, what do? I struggle to immortalize this body because I've taken the body as myself. So if I want to be immortal, I have to immortalize the body. So what all we do? Bhajagovindam, Shankaracharya says, Udara nimittam bahukruta vesha. We do so many things for the belly, for the body. Udara nimittam. So he says, pushyati, nourishes the body. You want to make it look good? We may be aging, but we don't want to look old. So there are beauty parlors all over. Ukshati, he uses all types of perfumes. And in those days, it was chandan, kumkum, or sprinkle the body with rose water, jasmine water, whatever it is. These days, we have taken to another level. So much is there. Then avati preserves the body very carefully. Vishayahi, through varieties of things, objects, he nourishes the body. We take so many supplements, this, that, and whatnot. In addition to regular food, all those pills that we pop, everything to preserve the body. So Shankaracharya gives an example here. Tantubihi kosha kritavat, like the silkworm. What it does to protect itself, it makes the cocoon around itself. Silkworm makes or creates the cocoon around itself with the silk. Poor thing. People, to get that silk, put the silkworm in hot water. The very protection that the silkworm is working for lands it in hot water, literally. The very silk it produces becomes the cause of its own destruction. Similarly, the human being identifying with the body builds up everything. That itself becomes the cause of its own suffering. It's a self-inflicted injury. silkworm example is given to show this kind of self-inflicted injury. Our samsara, our bondage is self-inflicted. Identifying, mistakenly taking this body, deha abhimana. So Bhagavan Shankaracharya says the entire samsara is self-inflicted. Continuing. Atasmin tad buddhi prabhava Vivekacu tvai spurati bhujage rajjudishana tato nartavrato nipatati samadhaturadikah tato yosadgrahas sahi bhavati bandhashrunusake atasmin tadbuddhe prabhavati vimudasya tamasa vivekacu tvai spurati bhujage rajjudishana tatanartavrat prato nipatati samadhatoradikah tato yosadgrahas sahi bhavati bandhashrunusake. Continuing the topic on bandha, he clarifies a little bit more through another example. And he addresses all the students, Sake, oh friend. Very dearly he calls all the students friend, oh friend. Shrunu, listen. Ignorance caused error is the problem. This is the essence of this verse. Atasmin tad buddhihi prabhavati. So tad buddhi means perception of one object. Here the word buddhi does not mean intellect. It means perception, notion, cognition. These are the meanings we should take for buddhi. Thinking, taking something. Where you take a particular object and you take it to be your notion, your cognition, atasmin, upon another object. You take one object and put it on another object, which it is not. So the perception of one object on another object, which it is not. Example. The perception of a snake on a rope, or perception of silver on the shell. One object is perceived as another, something it is not. So it is popularly phrased as atasmin tad buddhihi. Very difficult to translate into English. In Sanskrit and other Indian languages, it is very easy. Atasmin tad buddhihi. Very clearly we understand. If you want to translate that into English, the perception of that on not that. Tat buddhi, perception of that. Where asatmin, on not that. Not that means something that it is not, is taken as that. So in English, we will say the perception of one object on another object, prabhavati, arises. This in simple language is called an error. The perception of one object on another, on a different object, is the error. The error arises vimudasya tamasa, for a person who is deluded by ignorance. Deluded. Tamasa, because of ignorance. Whenever there is an error, there is ignorance behind that error. Ignorance is the first thing. Without ignorance, the error does not come about. What type of ignorance? No, it is not total ignorance. It's partial ignorance. In total ignorance, no error can take place. If we do not see the rope at all, the rope snake example, if it is pitch dark, absolutely dark, totally dark, you don't even see the rope. So when you don't see the rope, how can you mistake it for snake? Then there is no fear, no problem. It is bright, total light, you will see the rope as rope, then also no problem. What the problem is when there is partial semi-darkness. You know something is there, you don't know it is rope. From the looks of it, from here at a distance, in that partial darkness, it looks like a snake. So when it is this partial darkness, partial light is there, samanya jnanam asti, a general idea that something is there. But what exactly it is, vishesha jnanam nasti, it's not there. Exactly what it is, you don't know. So, samanya jnana purvaka vishesha jnana abhavaha. General knowledge is there, but specific knowledge is not there. And that is referred to as tamas here. Partial ignorance causes delusion, confusion. The error arises for a person who is deluded by this kind of ignorance, partial ignorance. Shankaracharya says, this is not a very big philosophical lesson. This takes place every day. We are in this only. Viveka abhava, due to the absence of clear discrimination. To put it in other words, because of the presence of partial knowledge alone, bhujage, upon the snake. Bhujage, upon the snake, Vais purati, indeed there arises Rajju dishana, the perception of rope. He has reversed the example here. So far we have been superimposing snake on a rope, but here he says, on a snake, you have the perception of a rope. Reversed. Don't think it is by mistake, very deliberate. Normally we say, you say a snake on a rope. Does it have to be that all the time? It can be the other way around. Person can mistake the snake as a rope. And that's a worse mistake. To mistake a rope as a snake, it will only cause you fear. But if you are brave enough and you venture to go near, then you will see, I thought it was a snake, it's a rope. Problem solved. But if it is a snake and you think it's a rope, and sometimes there are so many things on the road, we just don't leave it alone. Especially as children, as adults, we may not do that. As children, we are always curious. So you see something, actually it's a snake, but it's rope, okay, I want to play with it. So you go near it, lo and behold, it's a snake. It's a bigger problem. So he has consciously reversed the example. All errors need not cause problems, but some errors can cause very serious problems. So he says, tataha, therefore, adikaha anartha vrataha nipatati. Multitudes of problems befall. Not just one problem, a huge calamity. Every jiva is connected only with one anatma, his or her body. But that one mistake, so much problem. Through this anatma comes all kinds of sambandha, sangha, attachment, relationship. So Shastra says this indirect sambandha is the cause for all problems. The mother, father, all relationships related to this physical body only. Without the physical body, you cannot talk about your mother, father, brothers, thereafter in-laws, and then the house. Is for the body alone. All kinds of secondary things come about because of this primary adhyasa. That's why we have this primary adhyasa leading to secondary adhyasa, in turn leading to tertiary adhyasa. And because of this fundamental mistake, it is called ahankara adhyasa. This is the primary one. These are all analyzed technically in Adhyasa Bhashyam. As I said, Shankaracharya writes a beautiful introduction to Brahma Sutra. Here, Vivekachudamani, being a relatively primary text, he doesn't go into the details. So, Anartha Vrataha means secondary Adhyasat, Nipatati Adhikaha, never decreases. All our problems compound only. It keeps on increasing. All these are all for samadhatum, the perceiver, referring to the one who has committed the error. So for the perceiver, all kinds of problems befall. Conclusion is tataha, therefore, yaha asad grahaha saha bandhaha bhavati. The one who holds on to this asat, to this wrong perception, he is bound. So the two wrong perceptions, one, seeing the body as real, and two, the bigger mistake is seeing the body as myself. Second mistake. These two errors just create such a havoc for the human being. Saha hi bhavati bandhaha. Indeed, he really is bound. That alone is bondage. Shunu, Sakhe, oh my dear friend, may you listen to this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.